Hey everyone, welcome back to Taking Back Monday. I am so excited that you decided to say goodbye to the Sunday scaries and hello to the future of meaningful work. And I'm even more excited to introduce you to my new friend, Sandra. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
So, when I was reading your application to be on the podcast, one thing you mentioned was that you are a digital nomad. And I hear a lot of my friends who are like, let's just sell everything we own, buy an RV, and live on the road. Tell us, what does that mean to you? What does it mean to be a digital nomad?
I love this phrase so much because it could literally mean like 1 million different things. And if I think back to, my kind of like beginning of my career days were back in San Francisco, and I was doing some work in person, but I was starting to have a leaning pretty early on to the idea of working remotely. This is like way pre-COVID days. My whole family, I'm from Scandinavia originally. My whole family's still back there. I grew up traveling, and I kind of realized early on in my like, as soon as I graduated college, I'm like, I'm not cut out for the like normal 9 to 5, 2 weeks of vacation kind of thing. Took me a couple of years to figure out that that meant I was going to be an entrepreneur and live a very unconventional life. But there was some workshop I went to where the workshop leader mentioned the phrase mobile world citizen. And I was like, I was like, I don't even know what that means, but I want it. I want whatever that is. And the more I thought about it, I was like, to me, that means being able to work from anywhere in the world while like living my life the way I want to live my life. And then fast forward a couple of years and I'd launched my coaching business. I was meeting people in client or people in person, like at coffee shops in San Francisco, which I love because I love hugging people and, seeing them. But I was starting to realize like, wow, doing this virtually would be a lot more convenient, less paying for parking, less driving, more, this is like back before Zoom was even really a thing. I think we were doing like Google Hangouts and Skype and
Right,
stuff.
right. Skype.
Yeah.
Skype. Oh my God.
Right. Oh my God. So it was a mix of the two. And then in 2016, my husband and I got married and we had been talking a lot about it. And we're like, cost of living in San Francisco is pretty high. We could legit be paying less by traveling all over Southeast Asia and doing everything but like over there. And so we did. We got married instead of taking 2 weeks of vacation. We just sold everything. We bought one-way tickets to Scandinavia so he could meet my family. And then we traveled for 10 months through 11 countries. And I worked the whole time. And it was kind of like proof of concept. I wanted to prove to myself that I can indeed run this business from my laptop, from anywhere in the world. And it worked out even more easily than I expected it to. And then since then, it's just been like, all right, that's just part of my work in life and business and how I run things is even like right now, I'm 7 months pregnant and we are in a new house and we're in a neighborhood that we love with great community. And we're like more settled than we've been in a while. But I still identify so strongly as a digital nomad because I know that I have the option
Yeah.
to either pick up and leave and travel or to just, even if it means working from a coffee shop or taking a couple months off for maternity leave, it's about the flexibility and the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that you kind of jumped from more traditional work and then you realized that that's what not really what you wanted to do. But it can't have been that easy to go from like a traditional job that everyone expects you to have going to this new thing because that was way before digital nomading was like a thing that people did. That was way before van life on TikTok.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how you made that choice to say no to traditional work and yes to something completely different.
It was not an easy choice and it was not a clear cut one by any means. I would say I probably spent the majority of my 20s kind of figuring stuff out. And that meant trying a lot of different jobs. I had some more traditional jobs. I had a lot of random side jobs. I called myself like the queen of the side hustle because I just always figured things out. But I did a lot of unconventional things. And yet underneath it all, I was always searching for the thing. Like I knew I wanted to find a meaningful career that I like that was like passion based and was having an impact. I just had no idea what it was going to be. And it was a lot of like trial and error, a lot of kind of process of elimination. Like I worked in finance for a while. I worked for startups for a while, worked in the service industry for a while. I was always kind of like drawn to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, but I didn't think that I would be a founder or an entrepreneur. I was more like working with really smart friends who were computer programmers. And it took a while until probably almost my 30s when I finally found fitness. And then that was
Mhm.
close. And then fitness kind of led me to finding the coaching world. And then it was like I found that I came home to like my soul family and my calling, but it was all over the place. I mean, it took a lot of patience and resilience and like forgiveness, because I was beating myself up the whole time. Like, I should have it figured out by now. All my
Yeah.
peers are like well into their corporate careers. Like, what am I even doing with my life? And so that alone was like a huge personal development journey to just give myself the grace and the time to figure things out and to do things my own way. But I'm so glad that I did, because I
I
hear
so
people,
yeah.
caught in jobs that they hate, but they feel stuck.
I was literally like, I'm a big believer in serendipity. Like things happen for a reason. Literally, not even an hour ago, before we were recording this, I was having this conversation with someone, and we were basically talking about how the career has happened to her, and none of it feels like it's been connected, and that she's just been floating along from next thing to next thing, but none of it feels like it's been purposeful or a path. And we were having this conversation about like, do you want to continue just kind of floating along, or is it time to have a bias towards action? Is what we finally decided. We have a bias towards action. We're not going to sit here and talk about doing something great. We are going to do something great. And so that's really been my approach in the last couple of weeks, is saying I have to have a bias towards action, towards execution. Let me stop talking about these cool things I want to do and start doing these cool things. And even if it doesn't work out, at least I did something.
And that's how we learn, is by kind of stumbling our way forward. In my practice, I work with so many clients they're incredibly high achieving. They have such high expectations for themselves, but they get in their own way because they're perfectionists, they're people pleasers. They need to succeed and achieve. And so a lot of times they don't actually take much action because they're paralyzed. They're sitting on the couch stuck in analysis paralysis, or they're like, I literally can't go do the thing until I know I'm going to do it well, which is such a huge hurdle. And so same thing, like one of my favorite things to do with clients is, I think of it as kind of like metaphorically just pushing them off the cliff before they're ready, but it's just like getting them out the door to do something. And usually that something is like tiny baby steps, because half the time we don't even really know what they're going for. They just know they don't like they don't like their current place, their current destination. And so while we're trying to figure out the direction and like really who they are and what they want and what lights them up and what would be meaningful, but we're not just sitting around talking about it. We want them to get out there and try stuff, because then they get more clarity, they get more confidence, they get more momentum, and then they get all sorts of little breadcrumbs and clues they can actually work with and then course correct, versus just like sitting there and analyzing all the time.
Right. When I was in high school, I was taking advanced chemistry, and I wasn't a great student. Like, I will totally admit that. I didn't enjoy studying, and I didn't want to, so therefore I didn't. But I was very good in the lab. So when we would do our theory stuff for advanced chem, I would be like very middle of the pack. When we would do the lab stuff, I would get like the highest scores. And my chem teacher once told me, I think it was, I don't know if it was supposed to be a compliment, kind of a backhanded compliment. He made a comment like, Alyssa, you're good at this because by the time everyone's finished reading through the instructions 4 or 5 times, you're already on your second try of trying to do the experiment. You messed it up the first time and then you just tried it
Yep.
again. And he goes, that's why you're doing better in this, is because you're just trying it. You're just going, and everyone else is spending so much time reading the instructions. They get through it once and you've gotten through it 4 or 5 times. And I'm like, I think you just told me that I was reckless, but if it's working out for my grade, I suppose it's fine. And that's always kind of been my approach, is try it, try it, try it, fail a couple of times, and then maybe go read the instructions.
If I could whisper that into the ear of my younger self and the years of like 90% of my clients that I work with, it's like, dare to be a little reckless, dare to fail, like reframe failure as this massive, exciting learning experience. Because so many of us, we just, we second guess ourselves, and we need to get it right, so we don't even start. And we're totally caught in this fixed mindset of like, I can't even like show my face until I have it all right. And it's like, I have a friend who's basically the exact opposite of me. She's like, I'm like the second guesser, and I've really had to work hard to get to sort of the middle of the spectrum. She's like kind of slightly reckless, but I look at her and I study her, because I'm like, she does all these things that I would never dare to do. And she fails a lot, and she puts her foot in her mouth, and she makes like kind of a hot mess sometimes, but she gets things done so much faster than anybody else I know, because she just goes for it,
Yeah.
and you feel stupid. And then she's like, well, learn from it. And then she just keeps going. And I was like, that kind of just like, not risk averse, but the opposite of risk averse, like
For a risk, happy,
risk
living,
adventurous, entrepreneurial,
risk friendly. I don't know.
risk friendly. Yeah, exactly. I was like, so many of us could actually do with a lot more of that. And then maybe those folks can do with a little bit more like mindfulness and stuff to balance it out. But it really is. I'm like, man, it's so many of us, especially women who, we're so conditioned to like be careful and look good and be
Right.
appropriate and play small and all that kind of stuff. Like, a little bit more of that, just go for it, figure out, face plant, and of course correct.
Yeah.
So good.
I feel like I I used to be a lot more risk friendly, if you will, and then I got into like a stable kind of corporate environment. And then I something about that environment really made it hard for me to go back to being risk friendly. I got much more risk adverse in a very corporate traditional setting. And I'm looking at that, I'm like, oh my God, no, I lost my superpower. Like my ability to just shove off and do things and go. And now I'm like actively working to get that back. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's hard and it's you get comfortable in, well, we'll just go to a meeting and we'll talk about it instead of, well, I'm the only one here, so I guess I'm doing it, like, and have to be the one that makes it happen.
Yeah. And that's a huge difference between someone who's living in more of like the employee context versus somebody who's in an entrepreneur context. But I think in no matter what kind of work we're doing, there's opportunities to play with that. It's like you could be full on corporate employee and you have a lot of actual policies and rules that you need to play by so that, you don't get fired. But within that, there's, I think, a lot of like wiggle room
Mm.
to be kind of like, I have a colleague who she started this whole like brand called Corporate Rebel because she was all
Okay,
about
I love that.
people, like people who they work in corporate, but like if they just, like acquiesce and sort of conform to what everybody else is doing, they will lose themselves. They'll lose their spark, their creativity, their heart, their soul. So she was helping people like really find their unique spunky flavor while still like existing in, an ecosystem that certain things weren't allowed. Where as an entrepreneur, like I can do whatever I want basically. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's fine. No one's gonna
Right.
fire.
If then
You
it's
know?
all on me, it just means I maybe don't win your business, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think
So
no matter what our situation, we can play with that a little bit.
100%, you gotta be your authentic self, no matter if you're in
Yeah.
corporate environment or if you're your own leader, right? So you mentioned that you talk to high achievers and you really help them break out of that analysis paralysis. What would you say is the number one thing that really makes a difference? If I'm one of those people, I'm a high achiever and I'm in analysis paralysis right now, what would you say to me?
I would say the biggest shift one of the biggest shifts happens when we switch from living from the outside in to living from the inside out. And what I mean by that is when we're living from the outside in, we're letting external reality dictate who we are. So we're letting, I have to dress a certain way to fit in at work, or I have to act this way because that's how I grew up, or, I want to fit in with my colleagues, so I need to also, do this on the weekends. Or it's like we let the world, our conditioning, our family, our media, our peers, all of that tell us who to be, how to be, where to work, how to work, what success looks like, all of that. Which that can work out for some people who just kind of get lucky where their external reality matches what they actually want. But for so many, at least the people I work with and so many of the people in my world, the external reality is like maybe a part way match, but it's not a full match to who you really are inside because we're all so unique and so different and have preferences and all this stuff. But it's hard to make that flip when there's a lot of pressure from the outside. And so my work with people usually is about flipping that whole paradigm on its head and being like, let's get you living from the inside out, where the outside reality is whatever it is, but you determine who you are, how you are, what are your values, what are your passions, and designing a life it's like your external reality becomes a reflection of who you are on the inside versus your insides becoming a reflection of whatever environment you're in, which is when we lose ourselves, which is when, I get probably one of the most common themes I see in my business, and I've been doing this for 12 years, is like these really, especially, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, I get a lot of high achievers, like very successful people who come from successful families with a lot of pressure. And they've created these, lives and careers that are beautiful on paper, but internally they're miserable.
Right.
Or they're so burnt out, or they're so stressed. Like it's a wild too, the amount of imposter syndrome, especially from people who are like, they're actually crushing it in their fields. Anyone else in their sphere would say they're doing so well, they're at the top of their game, but inside they're crippled by this deep belief that they're an absolute fraud.
Right. Well, and it can't be like you talk about, the way that they're feeling, but I would imagine there's actual physical health effects on the body.
100%. Yeah.
Like my husband and I are both very high achievers, right? And every once in a while, I'll be like, I just need to go lay in a room and not have anybody talk to me because I've got like so much going on. I need to go lay under a weighted blanket and have no one talk to me. And he's like, you good? I'm like, I will be. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
But like, I can't imagine that that's, where I want to be in 10, 20, 30 years in my work life. I don't want to be laying in bed being like so stressed out.
And that's exactly why, to me, it's so important to help people, especially women, flip that paradigm and get to the place where they can still be high achieving. They can still create these beautiful lives and careers and have a huge impact, but they're doing it in a way that's in integrity with who they are. They're doing it in a way that reflects their core values. They're doing it in a way where they get to like, you know, be whatever identity they're working on being, let's say professionally, but it's still an authentic version. They can still express themselves in a way that's true for them. They can create
Yeah.
alignment in their life. And like, some people I work with, like we look at what they've created and then they start doing the inner work and they're like, oh boy, like I might literally need to burn it all down and start over. Some people who, get divorced, quit jobs, start businesses, move to a different country, like big, big life shifts. But most of the time, honestly, it's like tiny little shifts. It's somebody who is so stressed, so burned out. They hate their job. They think they need to quit. They think they need to move to a totally different industry or something. Turns out they just needed to like paint on the weekends. They just needed to honor a passion. They needed to do more of what lights them up and less of what drains their life force. For other people, it's like, wow, yeah, no, this actually, everything's out of alignment. Some big shifts. But a lot of time, just like identifying a little bit of these things, like the quirky little things that make each of us who we are and honoring those things. Like I had several women who are these like badass corporate, high achieving gals who, same thing, were really, they thought they needed to like just change their job or do something drastic. And then they realized that they had like 3 separate people who all realized they love flower arranging. And I'm like, I can't relate to that. I'm like, I love
No,
flowers. But like, it did not light me up. Like, oh, yay. But like,
yeah.
but they were so pumped about flower arranging, but they weren't doing anything about it. So we basically like insisted that they carve out time for flower arranging. One gal even like quit her job and started a flower arranging business on the side. Like, and one gal just like did it for herself. Another one started like a little side business where she would put them out like in a cart with a Venmo code
Cool.
and already credit.
Like
And
little farmer's market type concept. Yeah, cool.
yeah, it was like they just lit up like light bulbs once they started doing that one simple thing. And I was like, wow, did we just like crack the code to life happiness, at least for these people?
Flowers. Flowers is the hack.
Turns out that's a secret, y'all.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that's kind of hard though, because like I feel like I'm an adult, right? I'm a grown up. I'm not in college anymore. I have kids, and finding those hobbies, I think, can be really difficult. Like, how do you find that passion, that thing that lights you up? How do I find out that flower arranging is that for me? How do you go
It,
about that?
it really can be hard. And I'm laughing because I have like so many great stories about this. One of my favorite ones was a client she was in a group program of mine, and we were specifically working that week on like identifying and honoring your passions. And, everyone's like working away and having discussions. And she comes to me, she's like, bro, she's like, Sandra, not only like I can't even relate to the word passions. Like it just falls, like it doesn't even mean anything. She's like, I don't even know what I like. Because she had spent her last 15 years in a very toxic relationship with a, somewhat abusive person. So she was just surviving.
Yeah.
She had like zero access to passion, So the place that it's like kind of depends where we each are, but I think actually just recorded a podcast on this last week. I think an easy place to start for people who feel really blocked is like, what do you hate? And then what's the opposite of that? Like look at your life or look at your day to day and anything that you're like, oh, gross, I hate it, or you don't like it. Like that's a clue. That's contrast. Appreciate the contrast and look at underneath that. Like, what is the thing that I do like then? And then just look at things like, I don't know, list off a bunch of random hobbies or a bunch of random things that, what is a typical human potentially into? I don't know. A lot of people like music or like hiking or,
Yeah.
hanging with friends and family or whatever. But then you can get specific and you're like, okay, music. Do I like, yeah, okay, I like music. But like, what kind of do you like, listening to Mozart quietly at home? Or do you like going to like a folk concert where people are basically like beating each other up in the mosh pit or something? And then you start to identify, well, I like this more than that. So we just start to like have leanings. And then I think we can dig much deeper and ask ourselves things like, why do I like that thing?
Right.
A lot of us are like, oh yeah, I'm really into, going to see live music, but then you realize you're just tagging along with your friends who like this one band who you
Right.
don't really like. But then you're like, ooh, but if I was to choose the band, I would like this. Or actually, what I really want to do is just like go take a pottery class. So the
I
more I
think,
get into the details,
yeah, giving yourself permission to like those things, right? Like when it was COVID, I played a lot of like Animal Crossing, like those little cozy games on the Switch that we all played when we couldn't go outside. And I'm like, it's okay to like enjoy sitting down and playing a video game for an hour. I'm in my 30s, but it's fine. Like I can enjoy those things without having to worry about like, oh, this isn't something that helps me be a better person. I'm not, listening to a TED Talk. Like, it's okay to not enjoy TED Talks and to not enjoy reading nonfiction books. Like, I can just read a romance novel for the weekend, and that's okay.
a great journaling prompt is like, what would you love to do if you knew that nobody would judge you for it?
Yeah, I love that. I
You
need to
know?
steal that one. So tell us, Sandra, who do you think is taking back Monday? Who would you put into the hot seat?
Oh man, there are so many, especially women who I look up to, who I think are just changing the world and the way we do things and the way we show up as humans and as women, but especially in our careers, like across so many different categories. The one that happens to be top of mind right now, just because I've been binging some of her content, is this woman. Her name is Amy Tollestrud. She on Instagram is the Lazy Millionaire. Is her
Okay, I already love that.
brand. Lazy Millionaire. She's an entrepreneur. Most of the people at being an entrepreneur, that's mostly like, those are my expanders, the people I look up to a lot. Even though most of my clients are not entrepreneurs, but I'm like learning from these, especially I really resonate. I'm 44, so I'm like an elder millennial, border Gen X, but I resonate so much more with millennials and especially younger millennials, like really speak to me. I don't know. I think I just like I'm an old soul trapped, or I'm like a young soul trapped in, I don't know. Anyway, but like this woman, she is a course creator and she makes millions of dollars a year being basically like her whole brand is Lazy Millionaire because her whole thing is like it's kind of the antidote to like the hustle mentality and like work, sleep when you're dead, work hard,
Right, that tech
whatever.
bro culture.
Hey, bro culture, exactly, which is so in so many startups and founders are like that. And she works hard and she creates tremendous value with her free content and all her courses. But she demonstrates this life where it's so authentic. Like most of her stuff is just like she's at the beach club in Paris or somewhere in Italy, and she's just getting spa treatments all day long. So it's like she's embracing who she really is, which is this kind of like she's like, I'm ADHD, I'm kind of lazy. And so she's doing things her way,
Mm.
which, and that obviously wouldn't work for a lot of us. Some of us would be great for, but the point is like, there's so many ways to do your career, whether it be as an employee or as an entrepreneur or as a creative or a performer or whatever it is. There's so many ways to do it in your own way,
Mm.
your own unique flavor. But like, in order to do that, if we're going to design a life and a career that is a reflection of who we are, we got to know who we are. So again, it's that coming back to authenticity. It's coming back to just being, like you said, giving ourselves permission and daring to be a little bold and a little unapologetic about who we are and getting excited about it. And then like the more loudly we live our lives doing that, the more I think that we model for other women, especially like younger generations, and show them what's possible when we're true to who we are versus just like, following the roadmap to how you're supposed to live your life because this is what success looks like. Like, well, like that like makes me want to both like go to sleep out of boredom and like break a window at the same time. So bad. It just doesn't have to be that way. It can look so unique and so authentic.
I love that. If someone is really connecting with you, they wanna get more Sandra, where should they find you online?
And very easy to find. I'm the only one of me. So I always just say, just Google my name and you'll find all the things. But it's also sandrapossing.com. I'm at Sandra Possing on all the social medias. And then I also have a podcast called Oh Hi Self, which is all about bringing you back home to your authentic self, just like everything we've been talking about here.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for taking back Monday with me. I can't wait to have this podcast air.
Such a pleasure being here. Thank you.